friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about plants that I don't really show, I don't really talk about, ones that you might not even know that I have in my collection unless you've been here for a while, things that just don't come up all that often, and I'm going to talk about why I don't show them and things that I might be thinking about behind the scenes with them that I'm not sharing with all of y'all. I do also want to say that this video was voted for by my patrons. Every month I put up a poll over on my Patreon and I put some video options in there and I let my patrons pick out the video from those that they want to be seeing that month, and I make that video. So if you're interested in having your say in what I do with my channel, like the videos that I'm making, you can head over to my Patreon and check that out. It is linked below in the description. So that's what we're doing today. Before we get into it though, I want to say if you're new here and you don't know me already, hi, my name is Emma and I make houseplanting content all over the internet. So if you want to follow along with my houseplanting journey and maybe learn something along the way, stick around, watch some more of my videos, and subscribe to my channel. If you're not new here, welcome back. Maybe you will have seen these plants, but it might have been years since I last spoke about them. So yeah, I have done a video like this before, and it's very possible that some of these will be repeats from last time. I will link last ones again down below, but I talk about them so infrequently that if these are the only videos that I talk about them in, it's fine. So the first one that I'm gonna pull up is actually just up here, and it is a little bit wobbly. And I think I definitely need to do some work with this one, but this is my Jade Plant, or my money tree, or Crassula ovata, I believe is the actual Latin name. But I grew this plant from tiny little cuttings years ago, like right at the start of my plant collecting journey, and I've been able to grow it this far since. I do think it might be a good idea to cut the tops off again and hopefully have it branch out more. But the stems that it has grown in are extremely thick. Like over time they just get so much thicker, and I have had leaves fall off and then they just fall into the soil and keep propagating themselves. One of the reasons I don't talk about this one much is because it's fairly slow growing, and it's also pretty common. It's not like it's a hard plant to find. Honestly, unless you're trying to buy a big one and like have a big one right away, I don't feel like you need to buy these because they propagate so easily. You probably know someone who has one that can give you cuttings, and it is just one of the easiest processes and one of the easiest plants to propagate ever. But because it is a bit more of a basic plant, it just doesn't end up on my channel all that much. It's also not huge. I mean, considering I grew this from like maybe one or two tiny top cuts that were like maybe this big, I think that's pretty good. I do also really love the story behind this one. So the cuttings from this plant actually come from Jo, my partner's mom, who she has 7 jade plants in her window in the living room, and one represents each of like her husband, Jo and his brother, me, and my soon-to-be sister-in-law, so Jo's brother's wife, and then their recent child as well has just gotten a little baby money plant to fit in to the collection. And so we kind of use them to represent wealth and prosperity. And if you see that one's like losing loads of leaves, it might mean that you're spending a whole bunch of things right now. So I'm expecting mine to have lost quite a lot of leaves by the next time I see it, considering working on having a wedding. So it's kind of really special to me, and I don't feel like I can ever actually get rid of this one because it has that sort of sentimental value. So I'll just continue to leave it on my shelf up here, getting loads and loads of grow light all the time and letting it grow slowly but surely. I do really love this plant. I don't know why I don't talk about it more. I really should, because it is a really cool one. Next up, we have the Pothos N Joy, or the Peperomia Maculosa N Joy, and I I don't know why I don't talk about this one. I feel like it's a fairly common epipremnum. It's considered a pothos. I mean, I know pothos aren't technically pothos, but that's a story for another time. But yeah, I got this really early on in my plant care journey. I think, ooh, what was it? When I got to like 100 or 500 followers on Instagram, I did a giveaway of a satin pothos and Pothos N Joy cuttings. Like really nothing fancy. So I've had this one for probably about 5 years now, and it has just done so well for me. It does look a little bit disjointed right now, but I normally just have it up on that shelf there above my bed, and I really like the way it hangs down. Also, I find that the vines grow super duper curly. Like they just curl in on themselves, and so it makes for a really bushy trailing plant. It's done a little bit of weirdness around there. I think I've lost a couple leaves due to lack of watering, which I know is something that I have a problem with. I am a chronic underwaterer, so it happens, but I don't mind that. I don't really notice it all that much. It is very well established at the top, and I have chopped and propped this plant several times over, and it is just one of the easiest care plants in my collection. I do not have to worry about it in the slightest, and I think its foliage is just so cool. The sort of variegation the leaves has is so much different to that of like the Marble Queen. It's much more chunky, which I think is fun. This is probably one of the few really chunky variegated plants that I like. And I mean, I do have a few brown spots over here and there. It happens. It's not in a particularly humid spot. It's not in a particularly bright spot. It's just up there. And honestly, doing fine, so I'm really not worried about it. Y'all might have noticed that in general I've stopped talking about Syngoniums almost entirely, and that's because I have in the last, I think 2 years, gotten rid of almost every Syngonium in my collection. This is one of 2 I have at the minute, and at some points in time I swear I had like up to 10 maybe, but this one here is a Syngonium Frosted Heart, and the reason I've kept this one is because it doesn't really feel like a Syngonium to me. It doesn't give me those Syngonium vibes like lots of other Syngoniums that I've grown previously. I think the leaves... Oh, sorry, I thought that I saw a pest. One sec. No, it's fine. It's fine. There's no pests on here. We're good. It has had a pest previously, and I have like chopped it back all the way entirely before, and this whole new thing has grown out from it. But like I was saying, this grows so differently than other Syngoniums I have. The leaves on it are much rounder than the classic like arrowhead shaped leaves, and I really like this sort of mottled print on them. It does very much so look like the leaf is a frosted heart, a frosted green heart. Like, the name suits it perfectly. One thing I have been tempted to do with this one several times, I've just never actually made the jump and done it, is to put it on a moss pole, because this one grows very flat. It spreads out like a fan, but it grows flat, and it does have aerial roots coming off of it throughout like the whole bits of stem, and so I would think that putting it on a moss pole would do it well, I would think. Though, like I said, I've not tried it. Maybe that's something I can do to maybe re-up my love for a little bit. It's not that I don't love this one, and that's not why I don't talk about it. It's just fine. It's nothing really special. Its growth isn't phenomenal. It doesn't give me nice big beautiful leaves. It hasn't sized up for me at all, but I still really like it, and I don't want to get rid of it. And I mean, it is putting out new growth right now, so maybe this growing season will be really good for it, and I will be able to get it to grow a little bit bigger, because when they're big, I mean, when they're small like this, they're cute, but when they're big, they can just look so gorgeous. And so maybe I will actually make an attempt to get this one to size up at some point. Maybe this video is the like push I need to do that. I don't think I've ever actually filmed at this angle in my home, But since I'm taking you to all of the plants that I'm talking about in order for you to kind of see the environments they're in, I am bringing you into my hallway where this Aglaonema silver blue lives. This is her. And Aglaonemas are known for being incredibly low light tolerant. They are very, very chill plants, and I don't really ever feel like I need to worry about them. They're also known as Chinese evergreens because they are just so chill. I have this one in my fairly dark hallway. It doesn't get any sort of real light throughout the day. I would even call it like low indirect all day. You get some reflective light here and there just because it gets kind of two windows within its eye line, but it's very far pulled back from them, and I wouldn't really consider that any sort of real light to go off of. That being said, it is still growing. I've got a new leaf coming in there very, very slowly. I don't know if that's just because it's in the dark or what, but it is taking its sweet time to put this leaf out. But I got this plant, I think in my last haul of 2023, my House of Kojo haul, and almost immediately it started living right here because I knew it would be a super easy chill plant. This one hasn't really complained about being in the dark at all. It has lost a couple of its bottom leaves, but I don't think it looks bad. But I got it because I'm obsessed with these really silvery blue middles with the dark green outsides. And it's kind of rounder in the leaves than a lot of other Aglaonemas, which tend to come in more long, narrow shapes. So I felt like this was fun and different, and made for, spilling soil, made for quite a nice, like, bit of foliage for this spot. Kind of perfect for this spot because it can tolerate the lower light. I do tend to trade in and out the plants that go in this zone because I know they can't like permanently really live here because it is so dark. So I can leave this here for a few months at a time, and then I'll trade it out with something else that could also live here fine. Something like a snake plant or a ZZ plant that will tolerate the low light as well. So I actually can't physically pull out this next plant that I'm going to talk about. It is my Dioscorea Discolor here. And I can't pull it out because I actually have it trailing up the side of the shelves, and it has also attached itself firmly to this Alocasia next to it. It is fully holding on, which I do think is quite adorable, and that's why I haven't pulled it off. But this is a plant that I got actually as a swap or a gift from one of my plant friends, and it can be an incredibly prolific grower, but only when it's getting sort of the right conditions. You can see that mine has it's not sized up very much. In fact, it has gotten smaller in some places. It is not growing its very best, and I do think part of that is due to potential underwatering. I have it in semi-hydro because I've tried it before in soil and I did not water it near enough for that. These leaves are incredibly, incredibly paper thin, and they require a whole bunch of water to keep going. So keeping it in something like semi-hydro is a really good idea for them. I've also found giving it something to climb is important. Right now it is my plant shelves, but maybe something thinner it would like a little bit better. Like, it's really fancying the stem of my Alocasia here. Oh, there you can see it. Da-da-da! On there. How cute is that? But these leaves are so, so cool. But they have like incredible purple backs to them. And because the leaves are so thin, the veins are incredibly pronounced, which makes for a really interesting leaf pattern. You do also get slight bits of, I don't know if it's variegation or not, but changes in the color on the fronts of the leaves, which make it a very interesting one to look at. It's very reptilian almost in its vibe, and it almost looks a little bit prehistoric, like something that you'd see growing in a jungle in a dinosaur film. That's what it makes me think of, but I think it is doing all right. I don't tend to show this one because it's kind of hard to show something that I can't physically move. I mean, I could unwind it from the things that it's attached to and put it on a trellis or something. I have tried that in the past, but actually it has a trellis in here as well. You can't really see it because it's black, but I don't think it actually liked the trellis very much. I don't know why. I genuinely don't know if I could find something better for it to grow on than just in its environment. So I'm just letting it use its environment, and it seems to be happy enough with that for now. But since I can't take it out to show it that often, I don't end up showing it. It's also kind of hard to capture on camera because the leaves are fairly dark. So unless you're getting it in the right light, it can look a little bit flat and you don't really get the full effect of the plant. This one's a bit of an odd one because it does show up in the background of a lot of my videos, but it is very rarely front and center in my collection anymore. It is my variegated Monstera that kind of lives in the back corner there. And I do think this is an absolutely gorgeous plant, but I've honestly really struggled with it. I got this plant actually as cuttings back in like, what, 2020, when they were outrageously expensive and you couldn't get your hands on them very easily. And I actually have, I think, what, 3 plants in this pot? I've just put them all together on a single moss pole because I used to have them separated and none of them grew particularly well. So one of the sides actually grows very white leaves, some of which are half moons, full moons, and it has been doing that since the beginning. I have some half moons down here that I've lost bits of because they were just too white and I wasn't giving the plant quite high enough humidity for them to function the way they wanted to. And then I've got the other half on this side, which is a bit more marbled, which is, for me, the sort of variegation that I am able to sustain easily. But I have not ever been able to get this one to size up. I've not even been able to get a normal Monstera deliciosa to size up. And I don't know why. I have blamed this one on being a Monstera Albo Borsigiana rather than a deliciosa, which is kind of like the smaller form with more internodal space, and it doesn't size up quite as readily as the deliciosa does. I think that's the case with this one, but I'm not 100% sure. It very well could be a deliciosa and I'm just not giving it the care it needs. I will say I have tried it in almost every spot in our home in order to get it to grow successfully, and I've just not been able to get it there. I've tried it in much brighter spots, I've tried it under all the grow lights, and nothing has really given it, and I don't really know why, so I have just put it far back in the back corner and just accepted that it's not going to give me those classic Monstera leaves. It'll give me these ones with ditty fenestrations instead. Ooh, this one's popping out a bit of new growth that looks incredibly white, which a bit dangerous, but it's fine. I think I just struggle with this one and I don't feel like I can talk about it in a way like I know what I'm doing, because I really don't feel like I do know what I'm doing. I thought I knew what I was doing, and I've made care videos on these because I know the care they need, and I've tried to give it that, and this one just does not. It does not. I've wanted a big one for so long, and this one, while it isn't a small plant, it's not sizing up the way I would want it to, and I really don't know what, if anything, to do about it. So all tips would be massively appreciated, but I've kind of just accepted that it's not going to be perfect now, and it'll just stay like this. Like, it looks good in the back corner there. I have no problem with it back there. It looks really nice, but it isn't doing what I wanted it to do, which is a little bit sad because I've always wanted that big, beautiful, variegated Monstera, and I feel like I'm just going to have to buy one if I want one to look like they do on Instagram. Down here, just underneath my television, I have several plants, but I never really talk about this one. So this is my Peperomia Maculosa, and I do feel like it might be a wee bit dehydrated at the minute, so I will water it after I get done with this video. But it is another one of those like really big leafed peperomias. They can grow very similarly to the Sarcophylla, slightly less pronounced veins than the Sarcophylla, but still with those big broad leaves. Though I have found that mine have grown a lot skinnier and longer than the Sarcophylla, a lot less round, and I've not been able to get them to grow as well either. I found it a little bit more difficult to grow, given I am growing this one from cuttings that I got from someone, so it wasn't a full plant right away, but I do find them slightly more difficult and a little bit less rewarding as a plant. I don't feel like I would be as sad if this one disappeared from my collection as I would be without the Sarcophylla. I would be massively disappointed if I didn't have the Sarcophylla, but with the Maculosa, I don't know, I just don't feel as enthralled with it as I do with a lot of the other plants in my collection. I have heard that this is an easier one to get your hands on in the States if you aren't able to find a Sarcophylla, and I have seen some online and in shops in the States that look a lot nicer than mine. Mine doesn't look particularly anything, but it could be a good dupe for the Sarcophylla. If you are unable to get your hands on that, you might be able to get your hands on this one. But this one's about 2 meters away from a southwest facing window. It gets fairly good light during the day. I'd say medium to bright indirect light for most of the time. If it's sunny out, it's getting that nice light. If it's cloudy, it'll end up being medium or lower, but that seems to be fine for this one. I figure anything that my Sarcophylla can handle, this one can as well, though I do seriously need to water this one. It has had some new growth on it, a couple new leaves coming in there, so it's not like it's not doing anything. I just don't find it as attractive, and so I don't tend to like feature it at all. And like I still think I'm getting used to learning how to grow it, along with a lot of my Peperomia, but this one's taken a bit longer for me to get used to than some of my other ones have. So we'll just put you back there and I'll give you some water when I'm done filming. I do have surprisingly some things in my cabinet that I don't mention ever, which is a little bit of a surprise because I feel like these are some of my favorite plants in my collection. But one of the ones I don't talk about ever, which is kind of a surprise because I love this plant a lot, is my Alocasia Silver Dragon. Like if I could get this plant to grow well for me, I think it would definitely be up there in some of my favorite plants of all time because of this stunning coloring on it, that silveriness with those really dark pronounced veins. It is everything I want in a plant, and I have found that they are fairly hardy. I've not been worried about this one cycling really that much. The thing I have struggled with this one with is I've not been able to get it to size up at all. I'm pretty sure I got this one in like 2020 or 2021. At the same time I got my Black Velvet, and I got them both as baby little tiny ditty baby plants. So their leaves were like tiny. While the Black Velvet has sized up loads, this one just hasn't done the same sort of thing, and it does make me a little bit sad. I feel like I'm not doing something right by it or something. It's just not. But it's still producing beautiful growth. It's not having any problems in the growth it's putting out. I just wish it was getting bigger. I really love the size of my Dragon Scale, which this one I'd say is probably the closest in care to, and that one's quite big in my collection, and so I kind of wish this one was similar in size to that one, but I haven't been able to get it there. It does look like, however, because these last two leaves, surprisingly, they're the ones that are closest to the bottom, I think it has been getting more light in recent months or years than previous, and so it's not growing quite as leggy as it has before, and I think that's actually a good thing. I don't think these are meant to be very long-stemmed alocasias. They are supposed to be a little bit more squat, but maybe this one's a jewel alocasia and I just have a mini version, and that's the best I can ask for with it. I don't know if that is the case or not, but I do really love this one. Of course I have it in semi-hydro, like I keep all of my alocasias, and I do this because they are fairly thirsty plants in general, and if they're in soil I struggle to keep up with their watering needs. So in order to keep them as happy and healthy as possible, semi-hydro or pond, Lechuza pond, that's got a water reservoir at the bottom is super duper important for me with them in order to hopefully get good results. But at the same time, I'm not sure. Does this count as good results? It's got beautiful leaves. It's not grown ugly leaves, and I found, knock on wood somewhere, that it has been fairly like pest resistant. I've not had any issues with pests on this one in particular, so that's really good. I think it is because the leaves are a little bit thicker. They're not as prone to spider mites as some other alocasias with thinner leaves, so that's really good. But yeah, also I love the backs of these leaves with the red veination in there. It almost looks like blood in the veins of the dragon. So yeah, it's really cool. Maybe I will start showing this one more. I think part of it was because it used to be tucked quite far back in the cabinet, and now it's sitting a bit more forward. I can enjoy it a little bit more. This is one that I got, I think at the beginning of this year, and I have not mentioned it at all since probably January, if I even mentioned it then. I don't know if I did. I genuinely can't remember. It might have been in a reel or something. But this is my rat tail cactus. And it's kind of like a smaller version of a monkey tail cactus. It is an epiphytic cactus, meaning that they like humidity and will like a chunkier, thicker soil than a sort of typical cactus mix. It's not a desert cactus, it's a jungle cactus. So I'm just pulling out some bits. You can see how little I actually look at this one because I have stuff that needs to come off. But while this one is really, really cool, I never think about it. I popped it into soil straight away when I got it. I think it did have some roots on it already, and it has just been fine ever since. I will go back and try and see if I can find a picture of what it looked like right when I got it to see if it has grown. I think it probably has, but its growth structure is really, really fun. It grows these like little knobbles, and I think those knobbles just end up growing into these long sort of rat tails. And this is another cactus, like I said, similar to the monkey tail, that is petable. Like you don't need to worry about getting the little spikes. They're not even spikes, they feel like fur. I've literally treated this like every other jungle cactus in my collection, and it's been incredibly easy. I very, very, very rarely think about it, but I also find that it's not the most photogenic. I don't know, I feel really bad saying that about some plants, but like, while I really like it, I think it looks weird, and not necessarily weird in a good way. So I think that might be why I don't think to pull it out when I'm thinking about like plants that I want to show off or plants that I want to put on my Instagram or something. This is never one that I feel like I'm gonna think of, unless it starts to bloom, then maybe. But as it is like this, I do kind of think it's ugly. That sounds really mean. I don't think it's an ugly plant, but it's a bit aesthetically unpleasing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's a beautiful plant in terms of all plants are beautiful. I'm just digging myself a hole with this one. I do really like it. Please don't die. You are beautiful. You can do it. You're gonna do great. Keep growing. I love you. This last one I actually kind of need to dig out of the cabinet, And that's one of the reasons why I don't show it very often, because it is at the far back of the cabinet behind so many other things that I never pull this one out. This is my Scindapsus Jade Satin, and I've had this plant for so long. I'm pretty sure I got it as a couple of cuttings way back when, quite a long time ago. I genuinely don't remember when, just because I've had it for so long. And since I've had it, it has grown phenomenally. I've been able to wrap it around this trellis over and over and over and over and over again. And this is actually the only Scindapsus that I have in semi-hydro. I don't keep my Scindapsus in semi-hydro anymore because I found that it just doesn't really work for me and them together, except for with this one. But I think part of that is because I ignore this one completely, and if it was in soil in the back of my cabinet, it would suffer so much more with underwatering, because getting to it and like being able to see, I can't really go back and stick my finger in the soil to see whether or not it's dry, and so it having a bit of a reservoir of water at the bottom of its pot is kind of the only way that it gets watered. I think it seems to really like that, and so therefore I like it as well. It is growing new leaves fairly regularly. I think it has at least a few vines in here at the minute, since I have chopped and propped it several times over. It is, I suppose, one of my easier Scindapsus. I mean, all of my Scindapsus are really easy, but the fact that I never have to think about this one or worry about this one is great, and it makes my life a lot easier. You can see I have had some issues with discoloration on it. I genuinely don't know why this happened. And you can see it's really only on that leaf. For a while it had a couple of leaves doing that, but it really is only that one now. I suppose I could take that leaf off and it would look perfect again. But I didn't want to take it off before showing you this video, because I wanted to show you the actual reality of my plants and what's actually going on with them. Not like lie to you and hide the bad things and make you think that everything is perfect, because that is not how my collection is. There are always some plants that are putting out some bits of weird growth, and that might be part of the reason why I don't show this one. Maybe I will take the leaf off of this one and then start showing it, but I kind of don't think that's going to happen, because I do really think it likes being at the back of my cabinet, getting grow light a good chunk, getting lots of humidity, and I think it really likes that. But I don't think it needs it. It's just happy how it is, and so if it's happy, why would I change it? And I kind of like the way it looks at the back of the cabinet, kind of creating a bit of a green wall at the back, instead of having to look at my wall through the glass of the cabinet. You can look at this instead, and kind of makes for a nice planty backdrop in there. So that is it for me today, and those are 10 plants that I really don't talk about or show very often. I hope you enjoyed seeing a bit of a hidden part of my collection. Not that I'm hiding them, I just don't show them very often. And so I hope you enjoyed getting to see them today. I'm really glad that my patrons picked this video, because I do think it is fun and it's good to show things and like kind of get out of my comfort zone every once in a while and not show things that are like perfect and fabulous all of the time. So yeah, thanks patrons for picking this one. I also want to say a huge thank you to the newest members of my Good Growing fam over on Patreon, Louise T and Crafty Caterpie. Thank you so much for joining in. I really hope you like it over there. Like I said earlier, if anyone's interested in joining, the link is down below in the description, and you'll get all kinds of things from bonus content, video polls, live chats once a month, a bit more access to me, access to a Discord server where we talk about all things plants and show off things together and have a little planty community, and more. So that's there if you want it. Absolutely no pressure if you're not into that kind of thing, that's fine. It just makes my life a little bit easier, and I feel like I'm able to get to know my patrons a little bit better as well, which is fun. So that's there if you want it, and not if you don't. Otherwise, thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up down below and leave a comment on other houseplanty things you'd like me to talk about in the future. If I mentioned anything in this that you want to know more on, let me know and I can try and make that for you. And subscribe for more. Thanks again for watching. I will see you in the next one. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and don't forget to keep growing. Bye!